All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to season 3 of Batting 1,000, where we talk to the heavy hitters in the mortgage market. And I am super excited about the guest that we've got today. If you remember last year, we brought in Kara Whitman, who was Scotsman Guide top producer as loan officers go, who really did a great job. And we got so much great feedback. Well, I got a stud today that I'm going to bring in by the name of Hunter Strong. This kid is absolutely top performance. He did 47 closed loans in the month of February of this year. He did 48 in March of this year. He is killing it. He averaged over 20 loans a month last year in 2023, and he's pacing at over 40 loans a month in 2024. Hunter, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. Happy to be here.
So I think your name is the perfect name as I've thought about it. Hunter Strong. Because in this business, you got to be a hunter if you're going to succeed in the distributed retail world. And we're going to talk about what you're doing as far as working with agents and how you're getting your business from a hunting standpoint. And I love the last name Strong. As you know, I'm good friends with your dad, Glenn, who is one of the well-known and highly lauded and regarded people in the mortgage industry. He runs FirstTrust Home Loans, a good friend of mine and good client for a long time. So you've come up in that family of the mortgage world. I'm going to be curious to hear a little bit about that. But tell us a little bit about your background. I know that you played college ball. You actually played for the Kansas City Royals for a little bit, for a year, had some professional baseball background. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into the mortgage market in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. So, funny story, I wanted to be a pharmacist when I went to college. Got all the way to microbiology was my last elective before I could get into pharmacy school. As you mentioned, big baseball guy, played baseball at UCA, went to the University of Central Arkansas. My junior year, kind of unexpected, not unexpected by my junior year, but going into college, pro ball wasn't necessarily the plan, but really blew up and did really well and got a lot of scouts. Anyway, when I got drafted, I obviously took that opportunity, was super excited, but kind of put a delay in the pharmacy school type things. And so by the time I got done with that, I didn't want 4 more years of college. Really, I was ready to get into the workforce, start a family, start making some money and all of those fun adult things, I guess, as you would say. And so at that point, I had double majored in business. So I knew that, like you mentioned, my dad, Glenn Strong, he runs First Trust, First Arkansas for a long time. First Trust, I think right around the time that this was happening is when they made that transition to First Trust because we expanded to multiple states. Um, and so I always knew that that was a good idea to, I had opportunities there. Wasn't really sure what I would be doing. So once I was done with baseball, I went to him, said, "Hey, I don't think I want to go to pharmacy school. I'm ready to just to start working. If you have an opportunity, I don't care what it is. Make me the janitor. I don't care." And so I actually started as a loan closer. So that when I came into the company, I was a closer for my first year and a half, just closed loans, got a lot of really good time to learn the business, learn the back end of it, see how things worked, getting to the closing table, seeing all the fires and the issues that everyone seemed to have, so I learned a lot. That was invaluable. I think not going into sales for me, especially, I think I would have really struggled if I would have started sales day one. I think starting there really, really set the foundation for me to be successful in where I'm at now. So did that for a year and a half. Then kind of transitioned to our lock desk, our secondary market. Ran the lock desk for the company for a year and a half. And about 6 months in, I went ahead and got my license to be an LO. I really wanted to do that, but he didn't need me to be an LO at the time. He needed me to run the lock desk. But I went and did all of it on my own. It was like, just if something comes of it, great. But this lot desk is, number one. That's what I'm running. So, and obviously during this time, when I got licensed was the very end of 19, didn't close a loan till January of 2020. Well, luckily for me, I happened to get licensed right about the time that it was probably the best time ever to be a loan officer
Yep.
in our industry. So, come March, we got past all of that. And when we thought the mortgage industry might combust, the next month we started, hitting the ground running and breaking records and doing more business than ever. Well, my business started growing and growing and growing, and finally I went into his office and just said, "Hey, listen, I think I can do 3x of what I'm doing now. And at this point, I was actually close. This was 21. 22 is when I became a full time LO. That's when I transitioned. So 21, I actually tied for the number one LO in the company while running the lot desk at the same time. So, I mean, I was working just absurd hours, like trying to keep up with everything. And I was like, I put so much time into the lot desk. If you can just give me this opportunity to be an LO, like I really think I can take this to the next level. And that's so we decided to do that. So 2022 is my first year that we did that. And I think I hit 40 something million that year as my first year in 22 when I really did it. And then, like you said, last year we did 53 million. And then this year we've done about 25 through April. So things are still growing, progressing every year. We've progressed a little bit. And I think that's been the most fun and what I love, taking the competitiveness of baseball and sports and, you know, the harder you work, the more you do, the more rewards you get. Right. And it's the same thing for being an LO. And I think that's really clicked for me and why I enjoy what I'm doing right now.
I absolutely love that story. It's so fun knowing your dad so well and his work ethic, and I just see so much of him and you, and the fact that you came into this business, did not start as a loan officer, took a low paying job just to learn the business, build your way up, and transitioned out of 2021, the best year in history, into 2022 to become a loan officer. Most people wouldn't make that change, and a lot of them that did have not succeeded, and yet you have just thrived from that point forward, and I love your whole concept about the importance of work ethic and all those things. So let's unpack some of those things because you just said so many important things in there that I wanna key in on, and let's start with the first thing. You started as a closer, you moved to the lock desk, you were doing record production within the lock desk when you were doing that, and was it allowed you to move into that business. We're gonna get into the high production because I know that's what everybody wants to hear is how are you creating this high production? But before we get into that, I want to hear from you a little bit more about how understanding the backside of the business really has kind of formed and trained and changed the way you view applications and quality and conversations with your customers because what I see a lot of out there today, all the years that I manage salespeople and all the companies that I've trained, I've always said the best thing you can ever do with your employees is cross train them. Let loan officers spend time on a processor's desk and an underwriter's desk and a closer's desk to understand the ramifications. How has that coming into business on the backside forged your thought processes in regards to quality on the origination side?
I mean, like I said, it was truly invaluable for a couple reasons. I would say one, absolutely quality. Getting understanding how important the very first time you take the app, asking those questions, how important it is to get the information that you need because you know that in 30 days, if you don't do this right, it's just going to be an absolute firestorm,
Yep.
right? And every little detail matters. And as you said, through each process, the best you can do, the file can't be good if when it starts is bad. It's only as good as it starts. As we know, there's a lot of people in the transaction that help us get to the closing table. It's not just the LO. But if it's up to you, I mean, it's you. You have to take ownership of the file. And so if you sit there and do it, halfway, you can't expect the processor to take it any other way than halfway, and then the whole deal's done the wrong way. And then I think the other part of it that really was important was, I always was told you have to be the smartest person in the transaction, right? You have to be the smartest person in the transaction, whether that's the real estate agent, the borrower, the customer, the listing agent, anyone in the transaction. If there's another lender on another deal, you got to be smarter than them, right?
Yep.
You have to be able to take that control. And the more control you have, the more knowledge you have, the more confidence you will have and confidence that you can instill in the people in the transaction and create that level of trust with them. Because the more trust you have within the transaction, anytime that something goes wrong or awry or out of the ordinary, instead of everyone panicking and doing bat flips and calling you and panicking, they're going to call and just say, "Hey, what's going on?" You tell them, and then you move on. You find a way to fix it, and the less trust you have, the more those fires feel on your shoulders and everyone else. So I think it's just the confidence of understanding everything from how the closing disclosure is prepared to how the package is prepared. And, people will ask me questions that I know the log desk, the secondary market, how all of these things work, and it's that knowledge as a combined gives me so much confidence, when I'm talking to people when they ask me questions and I can pretty much answer about any question someone asks me. That allows me to be confident with anyone I talk to. And I think when you have that level of confidence to you when you speak with people, that makes them think, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's going to take care of this. If there's an issue, he'll find a way to fix it, and we'll get this deal closed. And once you get that trust off your back, people just, you just roll them out, at that point. So I think that's the other part of it. It's just the more knowledge you can have, the more confidence you can have, and the more trust you can build with everyone. And that's, I think, why it was so important to not start straight out in sales and run around and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, send me a deal," and not know. And for some people, that works great. I think it's a personality thing too. For me, I'm not just a huge outgoing personality by any means, but I've been successful still in a sales role. I don't view it as a sales role. I think that's what's helped me. I view it as people come to me looking for a solution with their problem, and it's just my job to give them a solution. It's not my job to sell them on something. They want a mortgage. You know, the realtor wants the deal to close. The realtors want someone to help you get deals closed. You don't have to sell yourself or your company or anything. You just have to show them that you're an asset and you can solve these problems for them. And then you show them that, and then they'll keep coming back.
All right. Well, I've been doing this for a long time, as you know, Hunter, and I got to tell you, for a 27-year-old guy, you had enough wisdom that you could be my age with what you just said in that. That was pure gold. That was absolutely pure gold. You said four things that I have absolutely believed and taught forever that I love that you said. Number one, you're doing very high quantity of loans, but your focus is quality first. And this is a message that loan officers need to understand and need to hear from somebody other than Dale Vermillion. And I'm so glad that you're telling people this message that if you do it right the first time, then you're not dealing with all the problems the second, third, and fourth time that drag you away from the ability to create more business. And you actually do more quantity when you have better quality. And then you talked about the importance of being the smartest person in the transaction, knowledge, having knowledge of your market, having knowledge of your partners, having knowledge of your products. Those things are absolutely critical, but also having knowledge of the process, knowing what happens so that you can prepare your clients and your partners for that. And then you talked about the importance of having that trust with the clients, building that trust so that they know that, look, if I give a deal to Hunter, it's going to get done. And I know that's the reputation you guys have created. That's what you stand on at First Trust. And I know you as an individual loan officer, I heard you, I had the benefit yesterday of being in Little Rock with you and the whole team for you guys' annual conference and got to listen to you talk on a panel where you talked about some of these things and the importance of those. I think what you just laid out right there is such gold for loan officers to understand that you don't need to rush, you don't need to do it sloppy, you need to do it right, and you need to know your business. You need to be the person that is polished when you get on the phone so people can trust you, have faith in you, and do a good job. I just absolutely love that. Now, let me ask you this question because you mentioned some of the numbers that you did. You did 53 million last year. How much was it in 2022, the year before that?
It was in the 40s. I
40
want to say
million.
47. I
Okay.
believe it was 47. Yeah.
It sounds like you're tracking at about 75 million to 100 million this year. What's your average loan size? Because I know you guys don't have huge average loan sizes where you're at. What's your average loan size on a loan?
Well, that's our joke in the office right now. It just keeps going down. um, but I believe last year was around 220,
Okay.
something like that. I think this year we're closer to 180, 190
Okay.
is right now through this year as an average. So
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that for the audience because those units you're doing are massive. 50 units a month is in the top echelon in the industry. But I'm sure some people were like, even though 40 million and 50 million, even to any market, those are big numbers. When you actually take those averages from where you guys are at in Arkansas and you put those on a national scale where the average loan is closer to 400,000, you almost double that number. So your 50 million is a normal loan officer's 100 million. If you do 75 or 100 million this year, that's 150 to 200 million in the normal market. So that any originators watch this be like, oh my gosh, these are massive numbers we're talking about. So now let's talk about how you're getting those massive numbers. Let's begin with who you're working with. What are you doing from an origination standpoint? The hunter piece of it, if I can use that terminology. What are you doing today that is creating all of the opportunities for you? Walk us through that.
Well, I mean, I think, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right?
As we just said, we've gotten here over a 2 or 3 year period. So I'm not going to say that what I'm doing today, if you go out tomorrow, you're going to get to 48 loans a month. It takes time.
Right.
But it's starting. I started as simple as just who I knew, right? And you know a lot more people than you think you know, and that sounds pretty obvious, but I think it's some people don't realize that.
Yep.
There's so many sources of business other than realtors, and my biggest source of business is realtors. So that's obviously I would say number one. But there's so many sources: title companies, attorneys, all of these people, investment professionals. I've gotten a lot of deals from different investment professionals that I've known or friends have known. I've asked people, more people who might have investment professionals, hey, who do you use? Do you like them? Would you mind setting up a meeting? And so I just started really simple and just started finding different ways to get my name out there as a loan officer, and having a conversation with someone, and then being, like I said, being confident, showing your value, showing why I could be a good resource for them to send their client to. Whether it's my company, whether it's me, a mixture of our products, just our ability to handle certain things that other people can't, and just creating that multitude of places that it can come from. You know, um, that's really where I started, and then just calling and meeting and calling and meeting and calling and meeting people, over and over again. I A lot of my business is not within a 50-mile radius of where I am. That was one of the things that we talked about on the panel was, and we live in a small community in a small town where,
Yep.
and our company is based off local. I mean, that's what we sell and that's what we believe in. We go and the communities that each of our branches are in, we invest in those communities, and we're very proud of that and very thankful for the communities and give back. And, that's what we love to do. And I love the town that I'm from. But if I would have, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? If I would have tried to, survive off just 30-mile radius that I'm in, and I wouldn't have done a tenth of the business that I would have done if I would have only wanted to stay in my area.
Right.
And so I went out and found, for me, it was baseball. I knew a lot of guys that were just graduating that I played baseball with that were moving into communities and becoming coaches. That's a pretty common thing for my teammates as they became coaches in high schools all throughout the state. And then, it's going to them and calling and saying, hey, are you buying a home? Getting their loans, getting in with the realtor that they were with, and then following up with that realtor over and over again. And they're like, well, you're in Sheridan, I'm in West Memphis, Arkansas. That's 3 hours away. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Here's all the things that I can do. Are you working with someone that can do that right now? They're like, no. And I said, how was this transaction? How did it go? Well, you closed it in, 20 something days. Our people that we're used to working with, they can't close this type of deal in 35 days. This was amazing. Can I introduce you to my broker? Absolutely. Let's set up a meeting. I'll drive over there tomorrow. I'll drive 2.5 hours tomorrow and meet with you guys. And I did. I went and met with them, and it just took off from there. So, just geography and distance can't limit you. And then investors are a big thing right now. That's kind of what's taking us from the 20ish to 40ish a month.
Yep.
And as crazy as this sounds, I found that on TikTok. So, got on TikTok. I follow a bunch of real estate stuff, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know how all that works, but whatever you're into is what's going to show up on your feed every day, as everybody knows. So for me, it's real estate and mortgages and things like that. And there's this guy that's a selling guru that does Section 8 investing, and he gets people in and he keeps saying, I have the best private lenders. I have the best private lenders to get you financing. And so I just DM'd him and said, hey, who's your private lenders, that are the best? And he's like, well, do you want to be a part of the program? I said, well, I can get on a call. So we got on a call, and I, Zoom just like this, me and him. He's in California. Um, Told him what we could do, and his entire business model is in the mid South Midwest because the properties are a little more affordable, and so for cash flow purposes, it makes the most sense to be right where I'm sitting. And so I explained how we have all of these markets and these states surrounding this area, and how we have the relationships already with title companies and realtors, which is all true. Um, and he said, "Man, this is awesome. I'm adding you right now." Added me to his list. He's got 2,000 students, and I'm the number one LO on that. And it's just, I
Wow.
mean, my phone blows up every day from just investors wanting to buy in the Mid South. So, it's just finding creative ways to ask and put yourself out there. And I've been told no way more than I've been told yes, but you don't have to be told yes more than you're told no to be successful. So
It's kinda like batting averages, right? If you hit
that I
th
was about to say,
yeah,
yeah.
if you hit 3 out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame. That's all it is. I mean, you could fail 70% of the time and make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it helped coming from baseball. Game of failure. Like you said, you fail 70% of the time and you're considered really good. I'm like, gosh, if you ask 1,000 people to send you a deal and 20% of them say yes, you had a good year, So that's kind of how I took it. And then obviously, I'm not asking quite as much now. That's our next phase. We just added another LOA on, and she's amazing and really helped transition from 20 to 40 because obviously that's just double, and triple the total amount of apps that are coming in versus also what's closing. So growing that organically and then just continuing to grow. So getting it to where I can keep that quality that we talked about before I go and try and go get more. I don't want to go and ask more if I don't feel like I can give each borrower the quality they deserve either, because that's still the most important thing to me. And the realtors as well that work with me. When I send a pre-approval, I have to be able to stand behind that. Well, I
Good.
have to have the time to do that.
Right.
That's so important. Everyone asks me that if they haven't worked with me. Is this a pre-qual? Is this a pre-approval? I'm like, we don't do pre-quals. We do pre-approvals. Um, I've verified the income. I'm not saying I have an entire file before a pre-approval. Everything's got to be quick, but I'm not sending a pre-approval if I haven't at least seen pay stubs. I mean, I'm just not doing it. I don't care how rushed they are. Or I said, I'll call them. I'll tell the realtor, send me the pay stubs. If everything else lines up, I'll send it. But I have to have that confidence, that trust with these people, with the realtors especially, because the borrower is extremely important, but they're probably one transaction. That realtor is where it keeps coming, so you can't risk one transaction to mess up that reputation. So that's kind of the next phase is just making sure we feel confident and with this big bump that we've had to keep that quality, and then we'll go out and keep finding creative ways to ask for more business.
I love it. So a couple things I wanna key in on you said there that were super powerful again. First off, I love the fact that you said, "I don't do pre-quals, I only do pre-approvals," something I've taught forever. The realtors don't want pre-qualifications, and the borrower should never get a pre-qualification because it isn't accurate. You're setting them up for failure, and you're setting your partnership up for potential problems by doing that, because if you tell a realtor, "This is what this person can qualify for," and then you find out when you get the docs they can't qualify, you've lost that realtor for life and everybody they would have referred to you. So, a lot of wisdom in that to make sure that we're getting docs and we're not running ahead of ourselves and getting too far in there. But I loved your whole statement about do not let distance and geography keep you from succeeding. The fact that you're working in Arkansas with one of the top investor teachers in the country in California. And I just love that you just were brave enough to just contact him. There's so many loan officers across the nation would be super intimidated by that and be like, "Oh, I can't reach out to that guy. He just said he's got the best lenders." Instead, you're like, "Well, let me hear who these are because I think I'm better than them." We have to have this inherent belief that we can bring the best to our clients. If we don't have that, why are we in this business? Why are we doing anything? So, I love how you talked about those 2 things and the impact of that, and I agree with you. Investors are a great opportunity out there. I love how you went after the baseball community. You stuck in the community that you knew you were in to build some inroads for opportunities. These are just brilliant things that bring a lot of business about. I so appreciate those thoughts that you brought. Let's talk a little bit about your team because you mentioned your LOA. Talk about the structure of your team and how you work with your team to do the kind of volume you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. I have had an LOA since 2022. I got one in the middle of 22 is when I got one as things were progressing and building. Just had one LOA, and then the way my company's structured, we have a processor and an underwriter. Actually, back then we that those would mix a little. You generally have the same ones, but it would mix as we grew and grew. And I've gotten my consistent production. I now have my own. Actually, I have two processors now that do my team. So we have two processors. I have one underwriter for every deal, which is super convenient because we all know how each other works. And then I have two LOAs. So my first LOA is Camden. She is more of the true sales side. So she's helping with only front end stuff. So apps coming in, I'll review them, but if something comes in, she might get the file cleaned up, and then I'll make that initial call, something
Okay.
like that. She also helps with marketing, keeping up with numbers as far as which realtors have sent me this, who do I need to reach out to, who have we not gotten a deal from in a few months that sent us 30 last year, what's going on? Is it because they don't like us anymore? Or is it because they're slow? Right. She's all that side. She is not, as soon as the file is active, she has no idea what's going on. She's never in the file one time. She's only on front end marketing, things like that. And then Brandy is the newest hire, and she's a rock star. She's been in LOA for 20 years, I think. Um, could be an underwriter, could be a processor, could be a loan officer. I mean, she's got that it factor, and she's been huge. She takes over the file when it's active, so she has no idea what's going on with pre-approvals. She does nothing with pre-approvals, nothing with sales, nothing with marketing. She takes over the file. We send it in once we get the contract active. She's going to get it cleaned up before it goes to the processor. She will reach out to the borrower at that point if there's anything needed or updated, like a new bank statement, something like that. And she's trying to get that file ready for underwriting before it even goes to the processor. So she gets that super clean, gets it to the processor. They do their processing things with title, whatever's left, and then goes to the underwriter. And then Brandy helps manage the active pipeline for me. So she has calls once a week with the processor, helping in, what's needed on these files that are active. She's taking that role of making sure everything's online and on time. And then I step in, obviously, if there's ever a major issue with an
Yeah.
active file, or they can't get a document from someone and they've asked 3 times or something like that.
So
So that's the main structure that we have.
So 2 things you said in there that I thought were critically important. One was, you said that you initiate every one of those calls with the borrowers, which I love because you're the guy. The mistake I see a lot of times that loan originators will make is they'll go work with the realtors, tell them, "Hey, I want you to work with me. I want your business. I wanna help you." And then when they refer a customer in, guess what? They don't even get that person. They get somebody else, and then there's a letdown for the realtor. They're not getting the person they thought they were gonna get. I love the fact that you initiate those conversations. But then you talked about specialization, which I preach all the time, and that is each one of your people have a completely different and defined role that complements each other. They're not overlapping, they're not getting in each other's way, they're not reviewing things that have already been done that somebody else did that creates duplication of effort. That's the way a system should be built for efficiency so that you've got a process in place where everybody knows what it is they're supposed to do. They do it and they move the file up to the next level. That's the way a process should work. And clearly, based on the numbers you're doing, those things are happening. What are some of the in today's marketplace with some of the challenges of things like rates? Let's talk about rate for a minute because you've heard me talk about this a million times. How rate doesn't matter. Everybody makes a big deal about rate. Clearly, it doesn't seem to affect you a bit because it's not slowing you down. You're speeding up, not slowing down. Tell me why rate's not a big deal to you because I know it's not. We've talked about this before. Tell me why. Tell me how you're moving through this rate market and it's not affecting you one bit in your mindset.
Yeah, and I'll say this, when I started, all it was about was rate. So it was even, I think, a
Yep.
bigger transition for me. When I started, the rates were 3%, 2%. So
Right.
every time someone called me, the first question was, "Is the rate 2%?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, this is great. This is amazing." Or I'm calling refinances, and the rates are good. So for me, when I started, it was about rate. When I started my business, that's all it was. Well, then when you go from 2% to 6%, you can't talk about rate and get a deal.
Right.
So it was a big adaptation, adapt or die. And that's what it was. And it was, so what I started learning, what I figured out just by talking to people and talking to people, they don't care what their rate is. And once I figured this out, it was easy. They just care what their payment is. I
Right.
mean, that's what they're asking you. What's the rate, or what's this, or how much can I afford? They don't care if you tell them it's 300,000 or 200,000. It doesn't matter. It's how much payment can you afford a month. So I just broke it down really simply. Every time, one of the first questions I ask when I take an application, no matter what they tell me, they'll tell me, "Well, we want a $300,000 house." Okay, where do you want your payments to be? Oh, we want, if the rate's not below 7%, we're just not going to buy. Say, okay, well, what can you pay per month? I don't even answer the question that they're asking. I need to know, what are you willing to pay per month?
That's right.
And you know what they do? They answer.
They do. You have to have a housing
They
piece.
answer.
Yeah.
What? Right? Yeah. Well, okay, we want to pay 1,800 a month. Okay, so you're going to be at $220,000. Can you find a house at 220? Yeah, we saw one. Oh, okay. Well, finish the application. We'll get you. We'll see if we can get you pre-approved for that. Um, I had someone last week say, if the rate's over 7%, we're not going to buy right now. I said, well, what are you guys paying in rent? They pay 2,000. I said, well, how much could you pay on a mortgage? And they said 2,500 is what they'll pay. And I said, okay, well, I think it was like $300,000 house, your payment's going to be less than 2,500 with their down payment they're putting down. They're like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. So do you still want to do it? And they said, yeah. They forgot about the rate. So I mean, it's simplified. There's always going to be rate shoppers. There's always going to be people that say, I don't care what you tell me. But 98%, I would say 98% of people, if you just steer the conversation to how much can you pay per month, you've fixed it. You fixed the issue of rate, because that's really the issue. I've had that conversation with someone when they said, "Well, the rate's 7%. I can't do it." I said, "Well, if the rate was 2%, but the payment was 5,000, would you make the payment?" They said, "No." I said,
Love that.
"Okay."
I love
so
that.
that was the big shift for me. 21 to 22. Getting into straight LO, going from it being easier than anything to say, "Oh, your rate's 3% or your rate's 2%," and they said, "Okay, great." I regurgitated that hundreds of times. And then I started realizing when I said your rate's 4%, 4.5%, 5%, 5.5%, 6%,
They're not so
I
happy
started
anymore.
realizing that didn't work. Yeah, no, that didn't
No.
work. And that's what's so funny too. I tell people this, that ask me, what about the rates? And I said, people were mad when the rates were 3.5. They were mad when they were 4. They were mad when they were 5. They're 7 now. They would go back to people that told it when they did ask what the rate was and told us we were crazy. They would love for those rates now. People are never going to be happy with rates, so you can't sell on rate, or no one's ever going to be happy with you. I remember people telling me when I told them 2.5 that they heard that they could get 2.3.
That's
I mean,
right.
that's just human nature. That's just human nature. So you can't worry about the rate. You got to figure out, like I said, everyone's got a problem. You have to be the solution to the problem. The problem isn't the rate. The problem is, what can they afford and what can their family afford, so they can have the house they want, but also be able to pay for that house, and have a life. And if you can just connect those dots, you're going to get a lot of business.
Awesome. Love it. So if you were to give the audience, your best tip, the thing that you think is most important from your perspective, to succeed in today's marketplace, and it may be a couple of things, what would that be?
I think for me, what has worked for me the most is, I'll answer this kind of the same way, but first, be yourself. I think people can tell if you're not yourself.
That's good.
If you are not a sales like me, I'm not going to come in and sell someone a pen like the Wolf of Wall Street. That's
Right.
not my personality. I'm a genuine person. I like to help people, so I go and tell people that's what I like to do. Not saying that salesy people are wrong. Some people have amazing salesy personality. Well, then play off that strength. I think you have to be who you are, play to your strengths, and then figure out the people in the marketplace that fits with. My personality and my strengths might not fit up with certain, realtors and certain business, portfolios that they work with, but for others, it works wonderfully.
Right.
So I'm not going for the people that I know my strengths aren't going to fit with. So I think that's the case. And then just treat every single person in the transaction like you treat your family. I think if you treat people with respect and just be kind and be patient, if it's the third time they've asked the dumbest question, you answer it with the happiest smile on your face and say, "This is a great question. This is the answer. If you have any more, please ask. Please call me and ask." I think being truly genuine to your clients, they relay that to your realtors. In the same way with realtors, I have a lot of realtors that call me and ask me questions because they know I'm not going to make them feel dumb.
Right.
They know I'm not going to talk down to them. You can't talk down to people. You can't act like you're smarter than anyone. Whether you are or not, it's irrelevant. Um, so those are the two biggest things. I think: play to your strengths, be yourself, and then treat every single person like it's your mom. And if they're asking you questions, you treat them like it was your family member. And I think if you do those two things, that's what I've done. And you do that every single day. You play it day by day and you look up in a year, 2 years, 2 months, you'll build something that's pretty cool.
I love it. And I will tell you just from experience, having trained millions of originators around the country, the salesy kind of approach doesn't work in today's marketplace. I see very few loan officers who succeed doing that. And the ones that do succeed for very short periods of time and it catches up to them. When you're sincere, when you've got that others first mindset, which we teach all the time, which you just basically said, treat them like they're part of your family. I mean, I love that. And having been down now with your team yesterday, that truly is the culture within your company. And, you know, I know your mom and dad. Now I know your mom too, but known your dad for years. And clearly, your whole family is wired that way. It's about really honoring people, it's being kind to people. That makes all the difference in the world. I got to say it again. You're wise beyond your years, my friend. You've done a great job, and um, great information provided today. All right, let me ask you the same question that I ask every one of my guests as the last question. I'm a firm believer that one of the keys to success for every human being is you got to have mentors. You got to have people who teach you, train you, guide you, and encourage you through your life. And I've asked every one of my guests to share, a mentor or the mentor or a couple of mentors that have been super meaningful in their life, and how that meant uh, and made a difference for them in their life. Share with the audience who that would be for you, and why that's been important and powerful to have somebody to help you learn and grow and get better.
Yeah. Well, I think this answer is probably pretty obvious, but that would be my dad.
I figured.
Um, so from day one, baseball, sports was my upbringing. He was the coach of every team. He was at every single event. And if there's something that his gift, I think, is bringing out the best in you,
I'd
whether
agree.
that's me or anybody else. That
Uh,
is
I would
that is
agree.
his true gift is whatever your potential is. He's going to get you to 100% of it. Um, and I think that's what he's done for me my whole life. He has pushed me in everything, whether it was school. I never made a B because I thought there wasn't an option. I, I didn't think there was another option. It's like, if you don't make an A, I don't know what's, and it's simple as that. So he created that mindset in me that failures, it's not an option. So you better figure out how to succeed. You better figure out how to go get this done. If you're going to play baseball, you better figure out how to be one of the best players out there. It doesn't matter. I mean, naturally gifted, none of it. Was not a natural athlete. I mean, I was athletic, but fifth, sixth best person on my team. And every team I started, whether it was little league, freshman team, senior year, I was not the best team, but by a year I was the best player on the team. And it was pure hard work and determination, and that was instilled because that's how he is, and that he taught that to me. I mean, if he wouldn't have taught me that, I wouldn't have been anywhere that I was. I would have never gotten drafted. I would have never, you know, gone through college and had the GPA that I had. Not that that really matters, but or the GPA in high school. But all of these things that I can attribute to success would be the mentality that he has instilled in me, as far as just hard work and refusing to fail and refusing to see that as an option. Just finding a way, and there's something to that. People will ask, like on the panel, they're like, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I didn't know there was another option but to do this." I mean, that's just how that's just how it was. Everything I do, it's 120%. And if you're not the best, you better be the best you could possibly be. Because if you're not, you're just letting yourself and everyone that counts on you down. And so I would say that obviously he has done that with this company and building it. He's done that with me personally. And that consistency in everything that he does is what's taught me to be that way in everything I do. Same thing with my family, with my wife and my daughter, who's now one. To me, there's nothing more important than being the best husband and the best dad you can be. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best husband in the world, but I'm going to be the best husband that I can be, right? Because that's my responsibility. And so I think that mentality in everything you do is what he's taught me, and what I still lean on today in everything that I do. So,
Well, I know your dad's awfully proud of you, and you're going to laugh at this, but this is true. Both my team and several people that I talked to over the last several weeks, I mentioned, yeah, I've got a guest coming on batting 1,000, just kick off season 3. The loan officer did about 50 loans last month, and everybody said, how do you do 50 loans? I said, well, knowing his dad, he probably didn't know he wasn't supposed to. That's probably what it comes down to. So,
I think you just hit the nail on the head. So
Hunter, this has been awesome. You have done an incredible job today. You have provided so many great, just golden nuggets for people to just see what it takes to be successful. I think the biggest thing that you did today that I really appreciate about you is you just showed people it's not rocket science. It's not hard. You don't have to do anything but work hard, be creative, and just put your 1000% into what you do, and you can do well in this marketplace. I am really grateful for you being on the show today. I know that the listeners are going to get a ton out of this. You bring your family down to Destin. We would love to, Laurel and I would love to take you guys out to dinner on our treat and spend some time with you guys and get to know you better. But I want to thank you for really being here today and for having such a huge impact.
absolutely, it's an honor. I appreciate you asking me to be on here. I really appreciate it.
All right, my friend. Well, we will look forward to seeing you soon. For the rest of you, thank you for being on Batting 1,000. This is just the first of the series for season 3. We'll see you on the next Batting 1,000, where the heavy hitters in the mortgage industry show up. Thanks so much for being here. God bless y'all. See you next time.